Cornelius, welcome.
Hello, Mike.
It's good to have you on the show. For those of you who don't know, Cornelius is the founder and the driving force behind PM PrepCast. This is probably the most successful learning provider offering preparation for students looking to take their PMI, PMP, CAPM and PMI-ACP exams. And I think over 60,000 students have now been through over the course of around 15 years that you've been offering these courses?
Started in 2007, I believe, yes.
Yeah. What I think most people would acknowledge who have compared them is the best PMP exam simulator in the business. So with that level of experience of coaching people through this, I thought there would be no one better to talk with to introduce you to what PMP is and to give Cornelius's perspectives on the certification and how to go about getting it. So it's great to have you here, Cornelius.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's get started with the absolutely basic question. What is the PMP certification and who is it for?
Right. How much time do we have? This is about a 45-minute answer coming. Yes. All right. So what is the PMP certification and who is it for? Let's start who it is for. It is for the project manager who has at least 36 months of experience. And I say 36 months because that is the absolute basic requirement that PMI has. So the PMP certification is not like a driver license that you need to get before you can even get into a car and drive it. This is something that shows you have the experience, you have been a project manager for 36 months, and now take this exam to show to the world that you have that experience, that you are, at the mid-level of your career there as a project manager, right? So that's who it is for. And when I say
I want to pick up because you very deliberately emphasized at least 36 months. And I think not only is that the minimum requirement that PMI sets, but I think without that level of experience, you will find it difficult to really understand all the material. But if you wait a little longer, you will get more experience. It does become easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is also the point where we can say, but what about the people who don't have that 36 months? Well, PMI does have other certifications, CAPM and PMI-ACP. We'll get to those in a little bit, right? So the PMP certification is a generalist certification for the project manager who has a certain experience and who wants to be recognized as a PMP. It is still the number one generalist project management certification in the world. And by generalist, I mean really generalist. So we're talking predictive. You have to have knowledge of predictive, plan-driven project management. You have to understand Agile. You have to know hybrid. So PMI is going to throw quite a lot at you during this exam. And it is a very, very hard exam, 230 minutes, 180 questions that can come from anywhere in project management.
Yeah, it's a huge syllabus now.
You have to be able to answer that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what is it? It is a certification. It is a certification that shows that you have the experience and the background of a project manager with that minimum time that you have actually led projects. It's not for somebody who just occasionally works as a team member on a project or for somebody who coordinates projects maybe. It is for the person who is ultimately responsible for the success of the project. So if the project fails, you get fired, you're it. You are the person who this certification is definitely for. Yeah.
Excellent. You mentioned CAPM and PMI-ACP. So could you say a little bit about how PMP differs? I think you've already started to answer that question, but how PMP differs for those, and perhaps put the three into a context for us.
Right. So the CAPM is the Certified Associate in Project Management. This is the entry-level certification from PMI. Here, the requirements are really minimum. You have to have 23 hours of training in project management. So that means if you're sitting through a week of project management training, you've got it covered, right? Because a week is 5 times 8 hours, that's 40 hours. So you're way beyond of what you need. The good news here is, and that's true for all PMI certifications, all of them require you to have training, but it doesn't matter when you took that training. I always joke and say that if you took a project management course in kindergarten, and you can still prove that you've taken a project management course in kindergarten, it is still valid as part of your education that you need for PMI certifications. So,
but prove is important.
Very entry level.
Yeah, because they will audit some applications, so you do need to have records, and it's a self-certification in the sense that you certify that you believe it is appropriate education, and if you you did it, then that's the test, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. PMI has certain rules around that and what it should cover. And for example, you've been to university and, you've taken certain courses. Which ones do apply? How do I calculate this translate this into actual hours? I went to school for 2 semesters. Is that enough? So there are all these formulas that PMI gives you. All right. So, So CAPM, entry level for those who are either participating in projects and who just want to have a certification showing that, I'm a member of a project team, or for the junior project manager who kind of has been given her or his first couple of projects and, getting their feet wet and just working on doing the small projects. And you're looking at the PMP going, I don't have 36 months. Now what do I do? Well, you go for the CAPM. The good news here is once you have the CAPM, when you then want to take the PMP certification later on, your education requirement is canceled. So you do not have to have any proof of education for the PMP exam if you are already CAPM certified. And this is because PMI realized that people who take the CAPM, they need 23 hours versus 35 on the PMP. They realized CAPMs, they study a lot more than 23 hours to get to the exam. So they were saying, you know what, you've already gone through all the training. There is no need for you to do this training again. So they've canceled that out. Then there is the PMI-ACP. This is actually something where PMI is very late to the game. This is their Agile certification, the Agile Certified Practitioner. And here we have to clearly specify that the CAPM is more for the entry-level project manager and maybe somebody who works on the team, although I think very few people who are team members will take the CAPM. The PMP for the project leader, the project manager, the person who is ultimately in charge. The PMI-ACP there on the Agile is for anybody who works on Agile projects. So if you are a designer who is a team member on an Agile project, you're a tester, you're QA, you're a developer, you're a Scrum Master, a project manager within an Agile team, that certification is for you. Very narrowly focused on delivering Agile projects.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic summary. I mean, for me, CAPM is about demonstrating commitment, really. It shows you are committed to building a project management career. And of course, you've alluded to PMI having lots of rules and regulations. These are, in PMI's mind, extremely serious certifications. And so I'll put links in the description to where on the PMI's website you can go to. I get one of the questions I get asked most often, I'm sure you get it, is, should I do the PMP examination? Should I get the PMP certification? And it is a big commitment. What's your answer when people ask you that, Cornelius?
As a good consultant, the answer always is, it depends.
Yes.
And yes, it really depends. First of all, it depends on, do you satisfy the minimum requirements, right? You have those 36 months of experience. Do you have 35 hours of training? If you have the 36 months, but not the training is that can be easily achieved. That's a week worth of going to classes, whether that is in person or recorded. So that's the first, it depends. Then the next, it depends is, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Right? Yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to continue along the lines of project management, or do you see yourself moving more into operations, senior level management positions, right? Or are you looking into a PMO type of situation where you'd like to go and become the manager of the PMO of your company? That would make sense. Is your company primarily doing agile projects, hybrid level projects? Then maybe the ACP might be the way to go for you. So this is not something that you can just have a general answer. You have to look at your individual situation and go, well, where am I in my career right now? What is it that I am enjoying about being a project manager? Do I want to continue doing that? And what type of projects do I want to do? So ask around in your industry.
Yeah.
Go to your colleagues. Go to your competitors. Yeah. And look at the type of jobs that they're putting out there, and see what do they require. Like, I would really love to work for this company here. Find a project management job within that company and go, well, they're looking for PMP. They have 2 job openings right now for PMP. It looks like I need the PMP, but when you clearly see that they're saying, oh, you need to be a Scrum Master, or you need to be an ACP, then, oh, okay, I have to go into that direction. So there is no general answer.
Yeah.
You really have to understand your wishes, your wants, your desires, your career goals. And based on that, you can then decide whether or not the PMP is the right thing for you. It is a huge commitment.
Yes.
To do this. You have to put your life on pause for a little bit there, because people usually study 1.5 to 2.5 hours per day for 12 to 14 weeks. That is about a solid way of doing that, even though I have some tools that do help you do this whole thing in 4 weeks, right? So it is possible to do it in 4 weeks, but frankly,
yeah,
I even have an article in which I say how to do it in 10 days, but that is ridiculous.
But then you really do have to pretty much stop everything, including taking time out of work to do that.
Yes. If you're doing it in 10 days, the only reason why you're doing it is to put comma PMP behind your name.
Yeah.
That's not the right way to do it. Look at this as a means of growing, of improving yourself, of becoming a better project manager who truly understands what she is doing at her work, right? If you look at it from that perspective, you will come out not only a PMP, you will come out an improved self, an improved version of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge investment in your long-term career. And I'd agree. If you're single and you're at the start of your work career, then probably that 1.5 hours a day isn't a big deal. You just put some of your social life on hold. But of course, if you've got a family and commitment, and I think the thing we should emphasize, that 36 months of experience is 36 months of experience of managing projects, not of work or being in and around projects. So chances are you're not going to be in 3 or 4 years into work, you'll be a little bit more into your work life. So
exactly,
have to get a lot of help from your family and your close friends to support you.
And this is the difference to the PMI-ACP.
Yeah.
In the PMI-ACP, the experience requirement is working on agile projects, working on agile teams, not leading agile teams. Whereas for the PMP, You're the project manager, you're the project leader. You have 36 months of being ultimately responsible for the whole team, for the whole project. If it goes wrong, you get blamed.
Shoulders, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. And it's also worth saying, adding to that, PMI, obviously, it's a US-based organization. It is the biggest certification. PMP is the biggest certification globally because of the reach of the PMI. But I know a lot of people who are listening to this are in countries where there are other alternative certifications which are of equal value in your region to your employers. So always take this advice that Cornelius has given, but also multiply it up by looking to see which particular certifications are most valued in your area, or indeed the area you want to work, if you see yourself as mobile.
But I mean, you're in the UK, and Prince 2 is still a factor in the UK, right?
It is, largely in the public sector, but also, I was at the APM's conference yesterday. The Association for Project Management is the project management body that serves the UK, and here their qualifications and certifications are very highly valued too. But of course, there are US headquartered organizations all over the world, working all over the world. And so you still can be more valuable to have a PMI certification for some jobs, even in countries like that have alternative certifications. So I think the spirit of what you said is that there is no substitute for doing your homework before making your decision. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if someone does choose to do their PMP exam, with your years of experience of actually coaching people through this, what are some of the most valuable pieces of advice that you find yourself giving to aspiring PMP candidates?
I think over the years, this has changed, right? At the moment, my most valuable piece of advice is get a simulator. I'm not saying this because I offer a simulator. I always say, yes, I offer a simulator, but Dan Ryan offers a simulator, PM Training offers a simulator, everybody, Rita Mulcahy offers a simulator, everybody does, right? And so to me, the most important thing here is to get the message across. You need a simulator.
Yes.
Some are better, some are worse, obviously, but you need to get the one that you feel comfortable with, that fits in your budget, and that you feel, okay, this, according to the lessons learned that I've seen from other people, this will get me to the exam. This is kind of like, we have all been out of school for so long, right? If you've been a project manager for 4 or 5 years and now you're taking this exam, suddenly you have to sit at a computer, mouse next to yourself, you're staring at the screen, you're reading this question, there are 4 answers there, you have to click on the right one, next, and you're doing that for 230 minutes. That is grueling because you're no longer used to it. With an exam simulator, you can practice that. You can practice your cadence, your speed, and at the same time, you learn. Every single question that you answer incorrectly in your exam simulator is a question that you will answer correctly on the exam.
Yes.
All right. So that, to me, is really the most important advice. Get an exam simulator and practice. And don't practice it on your phone, because you will not be taking the PMP exam on your phone. You'll be sitting at a computer like you and I are doing now, Mike, and we'll have to do it in this way. So not only use a simulator, but use the simulator in the manner that you will actually take the exam. Yeah, it's okay over lunch. I have 15 minutes right now before I have to go back to my next meeting. I think I'll fire up my simulator and I answer a few questions. Fine, do that on your phone. But most of the time, you want to be sitting, you want to be doing it right, simulating the actual exam experience as closely as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant advice, because all the learning theory says that you learn best when you put yourself to the test, and you learn best from your mistakes. So don't be put off by the fact that the first 2-3 times you go through the simulator, you find more things to research than you can pat yourself on the back. But also, how do you know when you're ready The answer is, with a simulator, you're ready when you are getting a consistent score that tells you that you have high confidence. It's a risk management tool, really, isn't it? What would you say is a good kind of sort of level to be aiming at consistently on the simulator before you decide, yeah, I'm ready?
Yeah, it really truly depends on which simulator you are using.
Okay, yes, that's true.
If you were using our simulator a couple of years ago, I would say shoot for 80%. That was the margin that we realized at that time that you needed, consistently getting 8 out of 10 questions correctly.
Yeah.
However, now the questions have changed. The exam has changed.
Yes.
Our questions have gotten slightly harder, and they're also different type of questions. They used to be just A, B, C, D. Now there's also drag and drop and point and click type questions that you need to be able to answer. Yeah. Now we say, between 72 to 75%, that's what you have to shoot for. Oh, by the way, this is not 75% the third time you answer a question. This is 75% the very first time you answer a question. Yeah. Because on the PMP exam, how many chances do you get to answer a question correctly? Yeah. 1.
Absolutely.
Right? If you take the same 100 questions 3 times, well, the first time you get 60%. The second time you get 72%. And the third time you get 96%. Wow, you're much better now. No, you're just remembering.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you do, right? Yeah. And here's another very important tip. Let's say you do those 100 questions and you get 60% correct. That means you have 40% incorrect. Just going, 40% incorrect, I'll get better next time. That won't do it. Okay. You have to spend the same amount of time reviewing the questions as you just did in answering the questions. Absolutely. So 100 questions, that's about 100 minutes, something like that. It's 76 seconds per question. So it's 100 questions, 76 minutes, actually. And so what you want to do is you then want to spend 76 minutes in reviewing the questions that you got wrong. Yeah. Also, the questions where you were 100% sure you guessed. Right? It's like, it could be A, it could be B, B. There we go, right? Flip a coin.
1 in 4.
Those questions. Yeah, you got it right. Wonderful. Why did you get it right? Yeah. So that's the type of investment you have to make. Not just answering the questions, but really looking at it, really learning from your mistakes and going, why did I get this wrong? Yeah. Right?
And of course, if you're serious about your project management career and this matters to you because it's a step in your career rather than because you want to get the 3 letters after your name, then it's not just a matter of understanding why answer B was the right answer to this question. It's also a matter of going back to your learning materials and understanding the subject that this question is drawn from, because the question that comes up in the exam may be a subtly different take on the same subject. So it's about understanding, not just about understanding that question, but understanding the subject. But something you said I thought was really important. It's no good getting 75% on the same exam as you did last time. And there is a real difference between the exam simulators you can buy where we've got 6 full exams for you to take, and the exam simulators which actually draw on a vast pool of questions and create an infinite number of random exams from that pool of questions. And if you go for a simulator which only gives you a very limited number of question sets, then you will very soon find yourself doing the same exam you've already done, and that's going to limit your learning.
Yeah, in our case, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I gathered from discussions with PMI that they have set exams. So my understanding, the discussion with them is they don't have a vast pool and then it gets randomly pulled. Instead, they create set questions and you get 1 out of 25, probably they have that many, right? And you answer those questions.
Right.
So what we have done is we have in our simulator, we have 4 predefined exams of 180 questions, but then we have a separate question pool where you can go in and you can say, give me 100 questions from this topic. Give me 25 questions from that topic. Give me 10 about initiating a project, right? And in this way, you get both of the best of both worlds. You can study a topic and then go into the simulator and say, all right, I have just studied, take a pick, the people domain, right? Give me 25 questions with questions about just the people side of project management. And now you can test yourself and go, did it stick? Do I know this? Right? So that allows you to test yourself on an ongoing basis. And then at some point, you're going to go, you know what? I've been studying for 3 weeks, 4 weeks now. I'm starting to get the hang of this. You know what? I'm going to take exam 1 of the exam simulator. Just going to see how badly or how well I'm doing, right? And remember, you're not failing the exam. You're learning from the practice, right? So you take exam 1, full 100% specific to the PMP exam, as close to the real thing as you can get in terms of the percentages, and 50% agile, 50% plan driven. So it's all there, right? And now you have sort of a very close to the exam experience that you are getting into it. Of course, you know, the first one you take, you're probably going to have a little bit of a lower score because we're going to be throwing questions at you that come from resources that you haven't yet seen. Of course, you're probably going to get a few of those wrong, right? But this is also a good thing, because one thing I promise you is during the PMP exam, the real PMP exam, we're going to look at those questions and go, I have never heard of this. How? Right? I've studied for so long, yet they're throwing something at me that I've never heard of. Perfect, because in the simulator, you've had that very same experience 4 or 5 times, and you're going to go, oh, look, there's something new, just like in the simulator. Now, how did I do this in the simulator? And you're going to go through this, and you're going to have your approaches. You're going to understand how to analyze these questions much better.
Now, you and I know that over the last couple of years, there's been massive change to the syllabus, to the exam structure, to the PMBOK guide, and I would say the relationship between the exam and the PMBOK guide. I don't think it's useful to go back over the history, but I wonder, what's your sense of some of the changes you might foresee in the, not long term, but what's on the horizon, do you think? What should people be thinking about?
Yes. So right now, for context, we are also in a transition phase from PMBOK 6 to PMBOK 7. So at this time, PMI continues to develop and add more and more questions that use PMBOK 7th edition as its basis, right? And everybody who has an exam simulator is scrambling to do exactly the same. What students misunderstand is the fact that, I can forget PMBOK 6. I don't need this anymore. Okay? Totally incorrect, right? You may not need the book itself. In a couple of years, you may not even be able to buy the PMBOK Guide 6th edition anymore. But the content, the knowledge that's in there is still required. PMBOK 7, principles focused. You know, what is good project management? What does a project manager do to lead a team properly? What needs to be done so that your risks are properly managed? The how is completely missing from the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. That's where the 6th edition comes in, and that's where my prediction comes in. Yes, you will not be able to buy the PMBOK Guide 6th edition anymore. Instead, you have to go to PMI Standards Plus. PMI Standards Plus is their online repository of all the project management know-how in terms of the what, PMBOK 7, and the how, PMBOK 6. How do you develop a work breakdown structure? How do you initiate? How do you plan?
Yeah.
PMBOK 7 doesn't answer that.
Yeah.
Standards Plus will have information about that. So my prediction here is this: at some point, PMI has this beautiful list of these are the references for the PMP exam. And by the way, don't read them other than the PMBOK guide, maybe. Standards Plus will be one of the references that PMI is going to add onto its reference list so that people know exactly, I have to use this online repository as well. This is where some of the information is drawn from for the exam question development.
Yeah, and
so that's kind of my prediction there.
Yeah,
that
I think that's a sound.
We'll need to understand.
And I suspect they're going to keep adding to that repository, so that increasingly, actually, not only, I mean, your advice is already don't read those 12 books or whatever it is, but increasingly, what's in those 12 books will be reflected in the content of.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the time of recording, full disclosure, I feel that it is not very user-friendly, PMI Standards Plus. And I keep telling PMI, please make it better. But the foundational idea, that the concept is magnificent.
Yeah.
You have everything in one place, all the information about how to manage a project and what is good project management. It's all in one place. But for the student who's preparing for the PMP exam, it is very difficult to navigate because there is no guide, no red thread going through, no means of saying, okay, show me from start to finish somehow in a logical sequence.
Yes.
What is, not what is, how do I manage a project?
Absolutely.
That is kind of missing.
It's a knowledge.
Eventually, PMI will get that done.
It won't teach you, which of course is why I recommend that if you're serious about taking these exams, and if you don't have a very, very strong project management background, you do get yourself a good, reliable training course. And we'll come on to your recommendation for the best PMP training course in a moment. You've answered a lot of questions and you've given us a lot of information. I just wonder if there's anything, before we go on to that you'd like to add. Questions perhaps I should have asked you, but didn't think of.
Mindset. I think the mindset is the most important factor that students really underestimate. And by mindset, I'm talking about how to go into this exam and understanding where PMI is coming from. I've divided this up into 3 mindsets. First of all, you have to understand how PMI defines and thinks about project management.
Yeah.
They will then take that PMI mindset and they will develop the PMP exam based on that mindset. This is what project management is from PMI's perspective.
Yes.
And now the volunteers who create those questions for the exam will assimilate that mindset and then output items, questions for the exam. You as a student have to understand what that mindset is. How did PMI approach the development of the questions on the exam? Now, that's the first thing. So that's the PMP and PMI mindset.
Yeah.
Second, you have to understand the Agile mindset. Yep. So we're talking the Agile Manifesto, we're talking the Scrum guides, we're talking just the general, how is Agile different from the Agile mindset, different from a plan-driven mindset?
Yes.
That's the second thing you have to understand, because again, PMI then takes the general Agile mindset that was not developed by PMI, and they take that and say, look, dear volunteers, take this Agile mindset, internalize that, and now develop questions based on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the third type of mindset is approaching the exam.
Yeah.
Again, that brings me back to what I said earlier. You probably haven't taken an exam in 5-10 years, right? Yeah. Depending on your seniority as a project manager and how long you've been out of school. So how do you approach this? What do you do best? How do you What's the cadence that you need? How do you study? What do you do during the exam if this happens, right? So that type of mindset, the understanding of sitting at it and actually doing the exam, those are the three types of mindsets that are really important to have. And they will go a long way for you to feel comfortable and to go and say, oh, yeah, I get it, right? This is an agile question. This is about the topic of sprint planning. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I understand what mindset I have to apply in answering this question. D is correct. Click next, right? And you will do that with confidence because you have assimilated the mindset. In the presentation that I do on mindset, I use these funny images where people are wearing these hats, almost like, you know, a colander that it's really funny. A colander the wrong way around with antennas sticking out. And so the assimilation of that mindset, right? You need to fill your brain with the PMI think.
And I think that's a really interesting point. And I think PMI is making it easier, particularly with the PMI mindset that you spoke of first, because of course that is the big difference between PMBOK 7 and its predecessors. The 12 principles fundamentally are an articulation of the mindset that they believe project managers need to adopt.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing that really highlights for me, and you're talking about the exam mindset as well, is it is about understanding how PMI sees project management. It is not about rote learning how to do this or how to do that. It never was. And, you know, people like you and I, you know, have said for many years, you know, it's not about learning the old ITTOs and just rote learning it all. It never was. But even if it never was, it is even less so the case now that this is about learning expressions, learning facts. It is about understanding how to do project management. But as you said, understanding in the context of how PMI sees the project management world in the agile, in the predictive, and in the hybrid domains. That's brilliant. So I do believe it is important to get good training, and you do offer it. So could you say a bit about how people can get in touch with you and what you offer to aspiring PMP candidates?
Yes. So basically, we offer a full-featured training course for the CAPM, for the PMI-ACP, and for the PMP exam. The training course is called the PrepCast. It's the PM PrepCast for the CAPM and for the PMP, and it's the Agile PrepCast for the PMI-ACP exam, right? And the idea behind those training courses is always the same. I want to make sure that you come out of this. Two things. One, you're very well prepared for the PMP exam. You know all the knowledge that you need to know, the basic fundamental knowledge in order to answer the questions on the exam, or at least understand what the question is asking. And number two, I want you to come out as a better project manager as well. And I've always taken that approach, got a little bit of flack about that as well. Oh, he's teaching so much more, right? He's not. It's not narrowly enough. I want him to be more focused on just give me what I need to know for the exam. That's all I want to do. And I'm going, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to include tips and tricks and real life stories and showing you what helps from, you know, the theory that I just taught you here in this particular lesson on whatever work breakdown structure, right? What does it actually mean? How do you actually apply this, right? In fact, one of the sections that I was debating for a long time, do I keep it in? Do I not keep it in? Is the expert interviews. I did 7 or 8 interviews with various experts from project management, and they're audio only, so no video, about various topics, situational project management, business acumen, having leadership skills. So those type of interviews are still in there, even though they're not specifically targeted at the PMP exam. They're important to understand. It'll round things out for you, right? You now have all this theoretical knowledge that you've just gone through. After you've listened to those interviews, you'll now get a better feel for, this is how it's done. Okay, so that is another thing. So you'll come out of the training course, the PrepCast training course, knowing everything you'll need to know. And I know that because we compare it to what PMI says. PMI has the exam content outline in which they say, we may be asking you about all of this. It's like 7 or 8 pages of very densely populated text there. So everything is covered. But more than that, you will not only know that and be able to apply that, you can then go and say, okay, now that I know out of that, I'm also a better project manager. I have the foundation that I've just been given helps me in my day job. And then, of course, once you've gone through those lessons, well, you fire up our exam simulator, or you can take a full exam.
Yeah, and I think that's why I particularly like the PrepCast product. It gives 2 things I think are hugely valuable. One is a world-class simulator, and second, I share your passion for learning and educating rather than training person through the exam. And that's a personal choice whether someone comes to you because they want that. But yes. I'm glad, because you and I have had that conversation about that content, that extra content, and I'm glad you decided to keep it in. Because what you didn't say, I don't know where you are in that process as we speak, but I know you've been going through the process of completely overhauling the PrepCast, PMP,
yes.
the PrepCast, to make it very much easier than it has been for people to track from the exam content outline, which is PMI telling us exactly what they believe, what they are going to test you on, and understanding how that's represented in your content. Mm-hmm. So where are you in terms of full release? I know there's people can already access all of that.
5 more to go.
5 more lectures.
Yes. Yeah. So what we've already completed is everything that is exam content outline related is done. Brilliant. So people, process, and business environment, all those lessons are done. All those lessons are out and published. Now we're going back and we're doing fundamentals. Yeah. So literally this morning, I recorded a lesson I was done about 15 minutes before I joined you here. I recorded the lesson, which is titled, "What is a Project?" Right? And I started this lesson by saying, so we're going to talk about what is a project. And you may think, wait a minute, I know what a project is. I've been a project manager for 36 plus months, right? I should know what a project is. Perfectly true, but because we want to get the fundamentals across, we have to start from the same basis together so that the student and I know exactly, use the same terminology and know what we mean when we talk about a project versus operations. Plus, many project managers, if they are in the second half of their, beyond the 36 months, right? They're at 72 months. They may never have really looked at the PMBOK guide. They may be in their own world, right? If you're in a large company has their own project management methodology, and they may define a project differently than what is needed for the PMP exam. So that's
the important point, isn't it? When you answer the questions, you need to answer. If there is a difference between what you think the PMI believes and what your own experience or your own organization believes, it's the PMI answer that you need to give.
Exactly. The mindset is what comes in again here, right? So that's very important. Yeah. So within the next 4 or 5 days or so, I should have recorded everything, and then the course is completely finished. Yeah.
So actually, by the time this goes out, if you buy the PM PrepCast, you will get the entire new structure and all the new content, which is fantastic. Because
here's the thing.
I've seen a few of the lectures, the new lectures, and the old ones were good in terms of the content. The new ones, I would say, they feel like they're 2020s and they're ready for learning now. They're great, and it is really good content for learning project management. So that's great.
And if you go to pmprepcast.com/more, MORE, you land on the YouTube channel that is specific for the PMP exam, where I have all the live streams that I've done as part of my PMP exam prep training course, where you can watch various things like what is the PMP exam is there, a lesson on mindset is up there. So all of those public PMP exam prep and PMP, close to the PMP exam prep lessons can be found at pmprepcast.com/more. Brilliant.
I'll put links to all of that down below, and of course links to where you can evaluate the PrepCast, the Agile PrepCast, and the PMP and CAPM versions of the PM PrepCast.
Yeah, free versions of everything is available.
Yeah, you can, you can try before you buy. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, really. You can really get a good sense of what it is you'll be buying before you commit your money. Cornelius, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Please do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. I'll be creating loads more great project management content, so please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.